That, right there, is why Chauvin is going to be convicted. Clinton Jaws here. The Chauvin case, however you want to say it. Why am I talking about this, you guys are probably wondering? Because it's the biggest case in the entire world. It's the reason why everything has gone to shit. Everything was going great, if you remember, back in March of 2020. Well, of course it wasn't going great. We had COVID. COVID came out, but everybody pulled together. Do you remember when everybody pulled together? We had Zooms, we were playing games, we were playing puzzles and stuff like that with our family. It was a weird pull together kind of situation that I think everybody was proud of. And then bam, in May 2020, George Floyd dies. And the world has erupted. And it hasn't really stopped. So that's why I'm watching the case. It's the biggest case. And what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Derek Chauvin, he's probably going to go to jail. I'm going to tell you why the defense blew it this week. I'm going to show you where they blew it and why Chauvin is probably going to he's going to be convicted. He's going to be found guilty on this one little moment during the trial this week. The prosecution, they had an unbelievable week. They got a use of force kid to give evidence, and he said everything that they wanted him to say. This kid was a cop for 5 years. And now he has become book smart. He's got a degree in this, a degree in that, a degree in that, a degree in this, about use of force. What they're talking about, the prosecution is talking to this use of force kid, and the prosecution, they're discussing what police should do when they encounter somebody. You have to read their behavior. What are they? Are they resistant, combative, passive? Every police officer knows if somebody's passive, you go a level up, okay? If somebody's combative, you go a level up. If somebody's uncooperative, you go a level up. If you go to the same level as the bad guy, it's just going to be a little silly fight. If somebody's pulling away and resisting actively, you have to do them one up to get control of them. If somebody is actively resisting, you have to take them down. And that takes power. That takes being overly aggressive. You have to do it fast. You have to do it hard. If you don't do it that way, you're just going to get in a spitter spatter fight. So you got to go a level up. Every cop knows that. But they got this use of force expert that he did. Just listen to this.
I had some further explanation regarding using more force than the subject presents. Right? And I believe you were asked if the officer was allowed to use sort of a level up of force. Is that an oversimplification of the reasonableness standard?
Yes, it is, and it's an oversimplification that really doesn't make a lot of sense, right?
It doesn't make a lot of sense to this kid. Hey, all the power to the prosecution. They got this guy, and it's gold for them. He's not telling the truth, but he's saying it in court. Right.
Like I said, what does it mean to use a level up from passive resistance or someone running away? You know.
Okay, I'll tell you. Passive resistance. You go hands-on. You grab onto them. That's a level up, isn't it? You grab onto him. That's a level up. If he's running away, you tackle him. That's a level up. You don't run beside him.
Or someone running away, you know, running faster doesn't count.
No, but tackling does. These cases are hard to watch when you see people. You see both sides, like just stretching the truth, not telling the truth. It's no wonder a jury becomes confused when they go to court and they hear this shit. What else does he say?
Your review of the reasonableness of the use of force, it was unreasonable for the officers to put Mr. Floyd in the prone position at all, period, correct?
Yes. At that point, he did not present a threat to the officers or their interests. He did not present a threat of escape.
He didn't present a threat of escape. So he's upset. He's saying it's wrong. When you prone somebody, cops, all cops, you only prone them when you're going to put handcuffs on him. And he's saying because Floyd was on the ground, that was unreasonable because I held him on the ground in the prone position. He says he didn't present a threat, and I don't have the video clip handy, but the moment they had him on the ground, Floyd kicks a cop. He actually kicks a cop quite violently. He's actually combative on the ground, but nobody's even talking about that. And this kid is saying it was totally unreasonable that he was... The only reason Floyd was on the ground was because he didn't want to be in the back of the cop car. He lost his mind because he was high on drugs. He freaked out. So the police officers, they take him out. They got him in. Now they're taking him out. How do you keep control of somebody? You put them to the ground. This kid thinks it's actually disgusting and unreasonable on what side of the vehicle they were. Like he's treating policing like a perfect science. He thinks the cops were unreasonable by being on the traffic side of the ground. In his perfect world, right?
The officers used some amount of force to put him into the car, and I have no issue with that. But putting him in the prone position, especially on the street side of the car, was unreasonable and excessive and contrary to generally accepted police practices.
Unreasonable and excessive because George Floyd went to the ground. They took him to the ground to keep control of him. Unreasonable and excessive.
Unreasonable and excessive and contrary to generally accepted police practice.
Contrary to general police practices or something like that. Like, that's not true. It's not true. What? I gotta hear it.
Unreasonable and excessive and contrary to generally accepted police practices.
That's not true. Good for him. He's winning the case. And these guys aren't... The defense, he's not a cop. He doesn't know. I mean, if it was me, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Well, you're full of shit. That's not true. That's an utter lie. You do what you have to do. You take them to the ground. And you keep them there. You take him to the ground. You know he needs an ambulance. You call the ambulance and you wait for the ambulance.
Reasonable minds can disagree. Agreed?
On this particular point, no.
Okay, so Sergeant Steiger, who testified earlier, did you have an opportunity to review his testimony?
I believe yes, I did.
And so his assessment that it was reasonable for the officers to use the prone position at that time, you would disagree with him?
I disagree. I think putting someone prone is unreasonable there. They are already handcuffed. The prone position is a transitory position used to restrain someone, handcuffs, or I suppose hobbles. In this case, officers took Mr. Floyd out of the car, put him on his knees, and then put him onto his side. And again, if they had stopped there, I would not have any quibble with their actions.
So he's fine. Oh, fuck it. Who cares? It's just so stupid. I have a problem with him being prone, but because they didn't put him on his side, if he would have put him on his side, I wouldn't have a problem with this. This is cutting hairs, isn't it? This is what it's come down to. This is what this case has come down to. Prone, on the side. Murder. You didn't put him on his side. You're going to jail for manslaughter.
Are there ever situations where officers would keep a person in the prone position longer than a transitory nature?
There shouldn't be.
There shouldn't be, guys. I can guarantee you, I promise you right now, that's how I was trained at Depot. I got a video of Depot. I wanted to show it. I don't think I should. My instructor. We're prone. And he turns to us and goes, "What's the hurry, guys? Take your time, walk around them." That's how we searched them. In the prone. Feeling up their back and their sides and stuff. There's no hurry to put him on his side. Yes, of course, if he's going to stop breathing, in a perfect world, you're going to turn him to his side. You're going to give him CPR. But this guy is saying, you don't ever have him in the prone position, only to handcuff. It's not true. It's not how we're trained. It's not how I was trained. And why wouldn't I be trained that way? You know? I would rather a bad guy be in the prone position.
Where the putting someone in the recovery position is literally a matter of rotating them 90 degrees onto their side. Officers can maintain as much or almost as much control over the individual.
It's not true. It's easier to kick your legs on your side. Try it. I'm telling you, it is. This kid is arrogant. He's cocky. He thinks he's one of the smartest kids in the entire world. And this clip proves it. He's trying to be so smart, he looks dumb.
And so, in the context of this particular case, does a reasonable police officer decide if the suspect should be put into the squad car, or does the suspect decide whether they should be put into the squad car?
Isn't that a great question? Easy answer, right? No, the police decide if he gets put in the back of the squad car, right?
The suspect decide whether they should be put into the squad car.
Does the
I'm gonna say something that I don't really want to say.
I mean, the officer determines that someone should be put into the squad, again, assuming there's legal authority and the like.
What does he mean by that, legal authority? How dumb is that? Everybody was put in the back. When I was in depot, you know how I got trained? If I was giving somebody a ride home, it could be a victim of something. They go in the back. I was taught they're handcuffed. Everybody that goes in the back seat gets handcuffed. Legal authorization or whatever he's talking about. They go in the back, no matter who it is, they're supposed to be handcuffed. Plain and simple. I didn't do it all the time, but plain and simple, that's what it is.
The suspect does not get to dictate, do I get to sit on the ground or do I have to sit in the squad car? Agreed?
To some extent.
He won't even answer a simple question. To some extent?
To some extent, yes, absolutely. There's a yes.
Squad car. Agreed?
Yeah.
To some extent, yes, absolutely. There's a yes.
Yeah. It's just, this trial's actually driving me crazy. It's actually eating me alive watching these guys. The defense is trying to say that George Floyd possibly could have died from an overdose because he had a huge amount, a massive amount of fentanyl in his system, and he had some meth. So they're trying to say, they want the jury to think, which is pretty logical, Chauvin didn't kill him. It was the drugs that killed him because he overdosed. How do you prove overdose? So Chauvin's in this grocery store, this store, and he's tweaking about. He goes back to the car where one of his friends is there, Shawanda, I think that's her name. And she gives evidence. And this is a good moment for the defense, actually. I got a kick out of this girl. How do you provide evidence of an overdose? She does this.
Sorry. That's okay. The store employees came and approached the car, correct?
Yes.
And at that point, Mr. Floyd suddenly fell asleep?
He was already asleep.
He was already sleeping?
Yes. Yeah.
He's already asleep. He leaves the store, goes into the car, and immediately goes to sleep.
He was already sleeping?
Yes. When they came to the car. And when they came there, I tried to wake him up. They tried to wake him up. I tried to wake him up over and over.
Over and over, they try to wake him up over and over.
And his friend tried to wake him up.
His friend tried to wake him up. We all tried to wake him up.
And his friend tried to wake him up. And he woke up. Then he'll say something. He made a little gesture, and nodded back off.
Okay.
He did that a couple times.
Was that?
What does that sound like to you? That was a good moment for the defense. They're proving the fact that he is fading away. Floyd is slowly fading away from the drugs in his system, possibly going into an overdose like he did before.
I used my money, so.
Okay. And did you continue to try to rouse
Yes.
Mr. Floyd?
She continued to try to arouse him.
So did you continue to try to awaken Mr. Floyd?
Yes, I tried a couple times, but then, I just let it go for a minute.
I tried, it didn't work. I let it go. That's pretty strong evidence. Now the prosecution gets up to talk to her. Well, she doesn't like the prosecution, I'll tell you this.
Yes.
Talkative?
Happy, talking, yes.
And
Laugh, hugging.
yeah. And when you went out to the store, he walked by himself out to the store?
Yes.
In fact, did a little dance as he went out to the
Yes.
car? We just have to make sure that you wait
Yes.
till the question's done so we aren't talking over each other, okay? I know it's a hard habit to break, but we just have to be careful with that, okay? And when you got back to the car, at some point he nodded off.
What the fuck you just say to me? I love that. What? No, you didn't say that to me.
You got back to the car, at some point he nodded off.
Yes.
But you were able to wake him, correct?
Yes.
And talk to him.
Yes. But he wasn't that coherent at the times.
No, he's not coherent. You know what makes me sick, okay? The Crown, the prosecution is like, he's fine, he was happy. He was taking a sleep. He was a little bit sleepy. And it's hard to watch as a police officer, as a former police officer, because Crown were the good guys. Those are the people that I worked with. I'd arrest a bad guy, they'd prosecute the bad guy. I'd arrest somebody for drinking and driving. I'd provide symptoms, watery eyes. He was slurred speech, stumbling and fumbling. So it's hard to watch the good guys well, it wasn't fumbling. There was rocks on the ground. That's why he stumbled. You just didn't see them. He wasn't slurring his words. That's how he talks normally. Watery eyes. It was windy out. So it's hard to see them act this way. And it's got me really thinking about court and how phony it is. The whole thing is phony. It's just two sides, even though it's not true. A lot of this. It's two sides just trying to convince a jury. How do you do that? You get the best experts. That's how you do it.
And so then he was awake.
Yes. You just want me to say yes or no, explain what do you want me to do?
Well, explain.
I want to explain. Okay, thank you. So when I tried to wake him up, he woke up the second time. I said, Floyd, the police is here. It's about the $20 bill wasn't real. I kept saying, baby, get up. The police was out. So he looked, and we looked to the right, and he had the police. He tapped on the window with a flashlight. And I'm like, Floyd. And so he turned back around again. He's like, what? And I was like, baby, that's the police. Open the door, roll down the window, whatever he told me to do. So he looked back, and when he seen the man had the gun at the window when we looked back to him. So he instantly grabbed the wheel, and he was like, please don't kill me. Please don't shoot me. What did I do? Just tell me what I did. Please don't kill me. Please don't shoot me. And I'm like, Floyd, baby, it's not. You said explain. I'm trying to explain which state he was in, sir.
I did. And I have to ask some questions. So I'm sorry to cut you off. I really am.
So
But I want to go back and just cover one thing quick, because where were you sitting in the vehicle?
in the back right passenger seat.
Okay. And so when officers
Back
came,
passenger seat.
were there two officers that?
Oh, she's not happy. And what the hell did she just do to her scalp? What'd she do to her scalp?
Really am.
So back.
That pisses me off. I was admiring her hair, and I thought it's fake hair. You know what's amazing about all this? The driver, his supposed drug dealer, George Floyd's drug dealer, they're looking at him. He might already be charged. Anyways, the thing is, Hall, the driver, George Floyd's buddy, his drug dealer. If I'm Derek Chauvin, I want that guy to testify, right? He pleads the fifth. He doesn't have to testify. You kind of want to hear from him if I'm Derek. I want him on the stand. Did you give him drugs? Sure. Did he put them in his mouth? Yeah. But he won't do it. Because then he can get charged. He can be convicted of murder. Happens all the time. A drug dealer gives somebody fentanyl. The druggie takes it. They die. The drug dealer gets charged with murder. Happens all the time. But doesn't it seem a little unfair that Chauvin isn't allowed, like all those people in the car, they can't even give evidence. This would probably help Chauvin out. It's like a half trial for Chauvin. He's not allowed to have evidence presented. It's not telling the whole story. The prosecution's number one witness is Hall, but he's not even going to testify. The defense number one witness is Hall. So you're not even really getting the full truth. The jury's not getting the full truth here. This is the game changer, for me anyways. I think for everybody. The defense has two experts. The medical expert does a terrible job. Use of force expert does a terrible job presenting. Out of all the use of force experts you get, well, one of the worst ones. He does come out and say, Chauvin didn't do anything wrong, basically. In so many words, gets cross-examined by prosecution and falls apart. The medical expert, he comes on, of course, and says, oh, no, he died a bunch of things. He had a bunch of things going on. He had a big heart. All that oxygen it takes, for a bigger heart, it takes more oxygen to be presented to get into the heart. And because of the narrowing of the arteries and 90% and 75%, that blood count is having a tough time getting up into the heart, so the heart beats faster. Nothing's coming up. The nutrients aren't coming up. He's got tumors in his body. He's got high blood pressure. He's on drugs. He says all that stuff, but he gets cross-examined, and this is a huge moment for the prosecution. This is what he says when he gets cross-examined.
Do you feel that Mr. Floyd should have been given immediate emergency attention to try to reverse the cardiac arrest?
As a physician, I would agree.
Are you critical of the fact that he wasn't given immediate emergency care when he went into cardiac arrest?
Yeah, as a physician, I would agree.
Are you critical of the fact that he wasn't given CPR? The defense own expert says yes. But he says the words, as a physician, I would agree. Not, as a police officer, I would disagree. Do you know what I mean? But as a physician, he would agree. Defense doesn't do anything about it. They don't say anything back to it. They don't correct that part of it. That, right there, is why Chauvin is going to be convicted. There's also a lot of other reasons, but that's it. They had their chance. Defense had their chance. And they actually had a pretty big chance, I thought. But those two last experts that they had, terrible. Awful. And really, we all knew he was going to get convicted of something, right? You know how much money this has cost? Billions upon billions. Lives have died from the riots. How much money has been shelled out to the victims already? The case is in Minneapolis. It's in the defense tried to get it out to another state. They said no. You don't stand a chance. The place is burning, guys. You think a jury is going to not convict this kid? Of course they are. Could you imagine being a juror? You would fear for your life if you would fear for your life if you said not guilty. It feels like an unfair trial to me that it was in Minneapolis, that Hall couldn't testify. It just feels like, and there's a bunch of other things that I can't remember at the top of my head, but I think that's why I've been grumpy lately. Anyways, just an update on the biggest case in the entire world that's going on right now. And Monday, there's going to be closing arguments. You guys got to watch it, because that's where prosecution's going to take everything they've learned, all the evidence, everything they learned, they're going to present why he should be convicted. And the defense is going to do the same. And it's going to be really two interesting arguments. And I feel like the defense is going to be way better than the prosecution when they do their closing arguments, but it's not going to matter. Anyways, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.